Well, I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to see my slides working up here right away. We had a little issue in the worship hour. A couple of buttons that needed to be pressed or whatever had to happen. You know, at home, we have a lady, her name is Cindy. Cindy is our technophile. She knows everything about every piece of technology. And we had, in the middle of our singing, we had a big singing last week. In the middle of our singing, we had something happen where the slide system went haywire. Cindy pops up out of her seat and gets back there and fixed it. So it's great to have someone in the congregation who can do that. I appreciate these men back here who are doing this work. There's a lot of things I want to say. This is my last shot that I get today. Maybe shot's not the right term to use. I'm not going to shoot anybody, but I do want to influence you. That's the purpose of gospel preaching, is to influence folks. And we come to our last lesson, Surviving and Thriving in the 21st Century, Part 3. Have you ever wanted to go out and do mission work somewhere? I've had the opportunity since the year 2001 to do mission work in Africa. And I've been to Africa 8 times for extended trips, typically 25 to 30 days. We go and we spend time in South Africa for a few days, then we go into Zimbabwe for about 10 days, and a great bulk of our work is done in that country. It's a really backward country. It used to be a great country in so many ways. The farms there fed much of Africa, even shipped food off to Europe. It used to be called the breadbasket of Africa. And then there was a big flip-flop in the government and things got all turned around backwards, and now it's called the begging basket of Africa. They've destroyed all the farms, literally destroyed the farms. And you say, how do you destroy farms? You go in and you run the farmers out, and you go into the house, you strip out all the copper wiring, all the copper plumbing and stuff like that. You sell it as scrap. You take a John Deere tractor that would cost $100,000 or $150,000, and you get yourself a pull cart, and you use a John Deere tractor as a taxi. And you haul people around, you never change the oil in it, and eventually the motor blows up, and you sell the John Deere tractor for junk. They have destroyed the farms in Zimbabwe. It's a really tragic thing, and people have been starving to death over there. We have helped so many of our brethren for the past 3 or 4 years because of the terrible drought that they've had and the problems that they've had. But when we go into Zimbabwe, we do preacher training. Usually have about 30 preachers that work with us, native preachers, and we have all-day sessions start at 8 o'clock in the morning and go to 4:45 in the afternoon, maybe 5 o'clock at the latest. And we have 3 breaks in the course of the day. We have tea time at 10, because the British influence is very strong there. Tea time at 10, lunch at noon, and then tea time again at 2:30 in the afternoon. But we teach from 8 to 10 lessons in the course of the day. Then we go and work in the villages and teach in the villages, and we always have some baptisms. And wish I had time to talk to you more about the baptisms, because nearly all the baptisms take place at a river. And rivers in Africa are filled with crocodiles. And we have to take rocks and throw at the crocodiles, and they'll actually go away. But the preacher always has to get in the water first. If the crocs don't get him, then the people being baptized, they're ready to come into the water to get baptized. We've done a lot of benevolent work in Africa, and maybe you have had it in your mind that you would like to do something like that, to go into a mission field. A lot of folks dream about going to Asia or Africa to preach the gospel. But I want to talk to you about your mission field right here. In fact, a few years ago, I presented something here at Cortland Avenue about mission field right here in this place, making this place your mission field. I want to talk to you some more about that today. And let me ask you a question. When do you think is the time to get to work?
Now.
What was that I heard? Now, yeah, that's it. You know, I have to tell you, folks, I do this kind of teaching in a lot of places. And in one place where I taught last year, everyone seemed excited about it. It's really going to be good. But, well, business meeting 2 months later, they said, you know, what Max presented was really good. We all enjoyed that, but now's not the time. let's maybe do a 6-month study on evangelism, and then we'll think about it. You know how that's working out, don't you? When people say now is not the time. What did Jesus say in John chapter 4 and verse 35? He said, don't say that there are 4 months until harvest. He said, look on the fields, they're white already to harvest. Jesus is saying now is the time. And when he was talking about the harvest there, he's talking about souls. There are people who need to be converted right now. And there are people here in this community who need to be converted. And if you go ahead and read the rest of John chapter 4, you see that there was a huge harvest of souls. Many of the people of the city of Samaria believed on the Lord when they heard him teach. And so what I want to talk about this afternoon is you playing your part in your mission field here at home. This is your place where you can do this. And I don't just mean in the city or in the county. I mean right here in the church building and a little bit beyond. You don't have to go to Africa to do evangelism. You know, someone says, well, we got a new preacher coming soon, Mike Thomas. We're looking forward to that. The preacher is the one who does evangelism in the church building. Well, the preacher does some evangelism in the church building. Brother Mike, and listen, I am excited for you guys. I really think Mike is going to be what you need in this time and in this place. I'm excited. I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of days, yesterday and the day before, talking with him, and I think he is just what you need at this time. And so he's going to get up in the pulpit or teach from the floor like I enjoy doing. And he's going to talk about plan of salvation and hear visitors. They're listening, they're hearing, and they hear the gospel. And he's doing evangelism. But he's not the only one who does evangelism in the church building. I was asking someone the other day, and I don't remember, did I do this at lunch? You know, when you do teaching like this, you lose track of what day it is and where you are. You know, you're just so focused on the teaching. But I did something the other day, and I'm going to do it again. I need 2 volunteers. And I don't care if you're male or female. It makes no difference to me. I would need one from this side, one from that side. Okay, I got it. What have I got? 2 over here? You can't do it, okay? Ayana, you're too, this is a grown-up job, or at least you got to be a teenager. Okay, yeah, Sister Summers, right? Okay, I'm working on it. And I got Diana. Is it Diane or Diana? Diana. With the A on the end. Okay, here you go. Diana, I'm going to give you your choice. You get to be a vacuum cleaner saleswoman, sales lady, okay? A vacuum cleaner salesperson. And you get the same job, Sister Summers. You get to sell vacuum cleaners. One of you has got to go up and down the street at Cortland Avenue and Webster and Deffenbaugh and State Street and up and down all these streets, going door to door, knocking on someone's door, trying to sell vacuum cleaners. One of you gets to work at the appliance store. You used to have Sears. You still have Sears here anymore? Hey, Sears is going away. Sorry, guys. But we saw the Sears store in Beaumont. There's still a few of them, and maybe there's some in Indy. One of you gets to work at Sears in the vacuum cleaner department. And Diana, I'm going to let you choose. Which one do you want? You want to go door to door, or you want Sears?
I'll take Sears.
Sister Summers, you get door to door. Now, how many of you would have chosen Sears? How many of you would have chosen door to door? Okay, Terry chooses door to door. Everyone else chooses Sears. Why choose Sears? Somebody tell me, why do you want to choose Sears? Because people are coming to you to buy it. And Terry and Sister Summers have to go out and find the people who want one. Wow, that's tough work. And folks, I want to tell you something. Evangelism here in this church building, when people come into your assembly, they come looking. You don't have to go door to door to find them. And if you're using these little cards out in the community, you're saying, come here. And you're not saying, come here to buy vacuum cleaners. You're saying, come here because we're teaching the Bible here. And people who come, they come looking for something. This is easy evangelism. Not just inviting the people, but I'm talking about when they come. These are your very best contacts in evangelism. Door to door, knocking on doors to find people who you can create some interest or who are interested in the gospel. It's hard to find them if you're going door to door, but when people come in this door, you know that they come looking. So, and let me just say this: you don't need that 6-month study on evangelism like the fellow suggested in the men's business meeting. There are things you can do now. That's the point of John 4:35. Jesus said, "Don't wait 4 months and say, then comes the harvest." He said, "Look on the fields now; they're white already to harvest." So I want to talk to you about how to do mission work right here in this building. And the 4 points that I made this morning, I'm going to make those 4 points again. Our first point is shine. You let your light shine in the building, but you let it shine out in the community. Remember what Jesus said, Matthew 5:16. You remember the words? Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. Well, you guys got that verse down. Let that be your marching orders. That just means you're going to live right in your community. And you're not trying to impress people with how goody two-shoes you are. You're trying to impress people with how great God is. And so God has changed your life, and you let the community know that God is at the center of all this. So that's your first thing to do. The second thing is to speak. You've got to talk about spiritual things. We salt our speech with references to God. Ephesians 4:15, we saw the verse twice this week where it said, speaking the truth in love. We need to speak the truth to people. And one of the things you can do, someone says, you know, my wife and I are kind of going through a rough time right now. And you can say, hey, I can understand that. A lot of folks have difficulties in their marriage. My wife and I have had some tough times too. But you know, God has got us through that. We've learned some things from God's Word that has helped us to get through these difficult times. In fact, Mike, our new preacher, is going to preach a series on the home and family for the next 4 Sunday nights. And so you're talking about God to people. Someone says, hey, I'm going fishing Sunday morning. You want to go with me? Oh, I'd love to go fishing with you, but I can't do that on Sunday morning. I've got commitments to God, and God has to come first in our lives. But I'd be glad to go fishing with you another time. So you just talk about God and talk about what your kids are learning in Bible class. Just salt your speech with references to God. You don't have to go wacky or fanatical or anything. Talking about God should be the most natural thing for us. How many grandkids you have now, Tammy? 4. And, okay, and 2 of them are like newborns? Yes. I have watched Tammy. I don't think she ate her lunch. She's holding little Callie Rose? Of Sonia Montine. Okay. I don't know one from the other, but she knows. At lunch today, Tammy's meal is right there in front of her, but she is holding that little baby in her arms, and she's just feeling so comfortable and loving that little baby. You can eat your lunch later. You know what Tammy likes to talk about? She likes to talk about her grandkids. That's natural stuff to her. For Max, what's natural? I like to talk small block Chevys, big block Chevys. I'm a Corvette guy, okay? We talk about what we're interested in. Anybody talk about the Indy Colts? Some of you don't like them? Look, watch out for Dallas Cowboys next year. That's all I can say, okay? We talk about things that are important to us. So we speak about God. We speak about God. It should be natural to us. Okay, so let your light shine. Speak the truth in love. And now comes that invite. And, well, I can't use this card here unless I ask someone to go to our Dowling Road website. I had 5 cards in my pocket earlier, remember that? And so we use those 5 cards. But invite people. And this is the simple thing to do. I like the story of Philip in John chapter 1. It's a simple story, but it just tells the power of an invitation. In John chapter 1 and verse 45 and 46, Philip has just learned about Jesus. You back up a couple verses, John chapter 1, verse 43. The following day, Jesus wanted to go to Galilee. He found Philip, and he said to him, "Follow me." Now, Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him of whom Moses and the law and also the prophets wrote. We found him, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." And Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." There's the invitation. Come and see. Come and learn. Come and hear. It's just that simple to give an invitation card to someone. Invite folks to come and see and hear, and some of those people will do that. But now here comes the big one. See, all of this you're fundamentally doing outside the assembly. You're letting your light shine in the community. You're talking to folks out there. You're inviting folks out there. Now what's next? Yeah, some of them are going to show up, and it's time to welcome your guest. God said we've got to give attention to guests in our assembly. In James chapter 2, and beginning at verse 1, James said, "My brethren, do not hold the faith of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Lord of glory, with partiality. For if there should come into your assembly," he's talking about how people come in the assembly, "if there comes into your assembly a man with gold rings and fine apparel, and there should also come in a poor man in filthy clothes, and you pay attention to the one wearing the fine clothes, and you say to him, 'Sit here in a good place,' but you say to the poor man, 'You stand over there,' or 'Sit here at my footstool,' James says, have you not shown partiality among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts?" This is our mission field point right here. These other three you might do outside, but this is what you do in the assembly. And God says you need to treat guests who come into your assembly in a way that respects the guest. How you treat guests has a tremendous impact on whether or not they're going to be converted. Studies have shown this, that before the first song is ever sung, listen carefully, brothers and sisters, before the first song is ever sung, before the announcements are made, before the preacher has said a word, people have already made up their mind whether they're going to come back or not. Already. It happens inside the first 8 minutes. That's what surveys have shown. It happens inside the first 8 minutes. People decide whether they're going to come back or not. Now, what's happening in those 7 or 8 minutes, in those 5 minutes, those 3 minutes? What's happening? It's how they are received into the assembly. You know, if you invite me into your house, and I show up at your house, and you neglect me, you ignore me, you talk right past me, you don't say anything to me, you talk to your family, you talk to your kids, you talk to your friend, but you don't talk to me, the one you invited. I don't want to be at your house. You made me feel very uncomfortable. I feel like I should be somewhere else. See, how you treat guests when they come into your assembly, this is evangelism. And if you treat them as unwelcome guests, you will say goodbye to them only one time, because they will not be back. And you know where to start your welcome? Not at the door. Your welcoming someone might start outside in the parking lot, this side or that side. It takes courage sometimes for people to get out of their car and to come into a strange church building. I like to tell the story of one lady that visited us about 5 or 6 years ago. She drove up in the parking lot. She got there relatively early before services, but she sat in her car. And she finally got out of her car and walked up to the building, and one of our elders asked her, "I saw you sitting out in the car. Is everything okay?" She said, "I had to get up my courage to get out of the car and come in the building." That's how that works. And so if someone will speak to them out in the parking lot, it makes it easier to come in the building. "Hey, I've never met you before. My name is," and use your name. Tell them who you are. "I'm a member here, and we're glad that you've come to visit us today." And you greet them in the parking lot. That's where it should start. In fact, some churches now are going so far as to say, we're going to put 2 or 3 greeters out in our parking lot. And they see someone they don't know, see a guest come, they make a beeline to them and say, hey, we're glad you showed up here today. Let me usher you inside. And they'll bring them inside and introduce them to someone then inside the building, and that's where the visitor's card and a little packet that you're going to give to your visitors, that's when all that happens. But some churches now are putting greeters in the parking lot because it is that important to receive those guests who come. If you see a visitor out in the parking lot, introduce yourself, welcome that person. And you know what? I want to show you something, folks. I have all my fingers, both hands, no bite marks. I've never reached out to shake a visitor's hand and they bit me. It's never happened. You've got to welcome folks. Make them feel good about the fact that they've chosen to be here. Do you have a heart that cares about people? Listen, if you don't care anything about people, what happens to their souls? You don't care anything about the Lord's church? Okay, this isn't for you. But if you care about people, this is something you can do. If you care about other people, latch on to your guest. This is your mission field. You can do this work right here. Let them know that they've come to a good place. I tell people that. Listen, we're glad you're here this morning. You have come to a good place. You've come to a place where the Bible's going to be studied, where the Bible's going to be believed, and it's going to be practiced. We respect God's Word here. And so you've told them they've made a good choice. You know, if you go down to the Chevy dealer and you buy a new Chevy, what do they keep telling you all the way along? Oh, you've made a good choice. Yes, that's what you should. Yeah, this is a fine car. You're going to like this. Well, maybe you will, maybe you won't. But if you make this a good place, you tell people you've made a good choice by coming here. They're going to feel good about it. I like to tell people that walking into a church for the first time where you've never been before, it's like walking onto a stage in the middle of a play. And here are all these actors on the stage, and everybody knows where they're supposed to stand. They know their role. They know what happens next. They know the words that they're supposed to say. And here comes a visitor, and he's like that person who walks in the middle of the play. He has no idea what he's supposed to do. Doesn't know where he's supposed to go. Doesn't know what he's supposed to say. He is depending on someone else to sometimes literally take him by the hand and lead him to a seat. You need to treat guests just in that way. This becomes your mission field. You make them feel comfortable. Introduce yourself. Invite them to sit with you in Bible class and worship. If you're using material in your Bible class, give them a class book. If they come into the assembly, give them a song book, or, well, today, you can just say to them, hey, we do something a little different here. We put our songs up on the screen. So the point is you can make them feel really comfortable. And by the way, I haven't checked in the back. Do you have any reserved seats here? Do you have some seats that are reserved? We have a few at our congregation that we've had to reserve. We have some special needs children and a couple of adults who are special needs. They have to sit in the back. There are 2 or 3 reasons for that. And we do have a very few reserved seats. We've got about 5 or 6 reserved seats out of 632. The rest of the seats, it's first come, first serve. You get to sit in where you want, and so nobody has my seat. But I saw a lady one time, and I've seen this more than once. Someone's sitting here, and this lady comes up and says, scoot over, you're in my seat. Saying that to a guest. Okay. Brother, someone comes into your home and sits in your chair. Sits in your chair, and you walk in the room and say, get up, you're in my chair. You just told them you don't belong here. And you have essentially told them to leave, go home. And when you're that rude to a guest, again, you get to say goodbye to them only once because they will not be back. I also recommend strongly, after a service is over, listen, if we're out doing this shine, speak, and invite thing, if we're really doing that, people are going to show up. I recommend strongly that as soon as services are over, you follow the 10-minute rule. The 10-minute rule is something we have to remind our people of about once a month at home. And what that means, for the first 10 minutes after services, you don't talk to your buds. You don't look for your friends, the ones you always talk to. 10 minutes is all it takes. You put on your guest goggles and you scan the crowd and you see who's there for the first time. Who's there that you don't know? That's probably a visitor. Now, occasionally, in a congregation of our size, you're scanning the crowd and you see someone over there. I don't know him. I've been here 10 years, but I've never seen him. He must be a guest. And you go over there and say, hey, brother, I am so-and-so. We're glad to have you today. And he says, I'm not a guest. I've been here for 20 years. Well, you sure don't show up much, okay? Now, don't say that to him. But my point is, sometimes you'll have someone like that. You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But you're going to get guests come into your assembly, and you spend the first 10 minutes paying attention to your guest. And the way you do that, you go up and you introduce yourself to them and ask them, hey, did someone invite you? And especially if you do that before services, you help them find someone who might have invited them to come so they can sit with them. Otherwise, you want them to come and sit with you. But then after you have introduced yourself to this person, you take them by the hand and say, hey, here's Mike over here, our new preacher. I want you to meet him. Come meet him. And so you take that guest over to Mike and you say, Mike, this is Jane Doe or John Doe, and this is the first time they're here. I wanted them to meet you. And now you've done a little more evangelism because Mike just might ask them for a Bible study. And then Mike can pass them off to someone else and say, I want you to meet John, our song leader. Or I want you to meet Travis, who teaches our Bible class. See, and if the statistics have shown that if they meet 3 or 4 people, it greatly enhances the possibility that they're going to come back again. However, have you ever been to that church where you walked in the building, you walked past people, nobody said a word to you, you sat down, nobody said anything to you, you got up and you left, and no one paid any attention to you? Lee and I travel a lot, and we often come into a church unannounced. Oh, listen, when people know me and they know Lee, oh, Brother and Sister Dawson, it's great to have you here. They're always nice to us. But I want you to be nice to the guest. That's where the energy needs to be. And so you pass them off to someone else. Let them meet 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 families. If they bring their kids in, introduce them to another family with kids. See, this is evangelism. And you didn't have to go to Africa to do it. You did it right here at 1217 South Cortland Avenue. Is that still the address? I think it is, yeah. I still remember that. We used to live at 610 West State Street, which was right there. It's parking lot now. I still remember those old numbers. Somebody says, but Max, I'm afraid that if you try to introduce them to too many people, that your guests are going to get upset if they talk to too many people. No, what upsets people is when too few talk to them and no one talks to them. We've all been to that church. And so those are just some simple things you can do. This is your field of evangelism right here. When people show up, if you're working this plan, and I'm going to tell you, I mentioned the other day the church out in Fresno, Clovis, California. This is what they're doing, and they're doing well with it. They're converting people. Shine, speak, invite, welcome. Call Don Truex, Temple Terrace. Ask to talk to him or one of the elders there. What's working for you in evangelism? Shine, speak, invite, and welcome guests. It's working for them. And they're baptizing people on a regular basis. They're baptizing 20, 25 people a year because they're working a plan. They know what they're doing. This isn't hard. You know, sometimes Bible studies can be really hard. And people can ask really challenging questions, but this is easy stuff. Don't count on others to do it. You do it. There's nothing in these 4 points that you can't do. That's mission work right here in this building. But let's see if we can expand our work. Expanding your mission field to your community. You have a choice to make. Will this be a church for your community? Community means the neighborhood, the city, and the county, and maybe even into the next county. Howard County has 80,000 people, a little over 80,000 people. Kokomo has 55,000 people within 15 minutes of this building. This is your community. The church must reach out to this community. You can expand your mission field beyond this building. And yet what goes on in this place where you meet is still critically important to your community. What is this place going to be like in the future? Are we okay, Jim? The mic failed again? Did I turn it off? I didn't touch it. It still says red. Lost something else? How about this mic? Is it working? It's not working. All right, I will talk louder if I have to. Okay, whatever we got to do. All right. Testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right. The mic is dead, but the preacher isn't, okay? We'll see what happens. I'm going to continue to talk. Let me talk to you a little bit about making this place something special. Whether you're meeting here or eventually if you get into a new facility, making your facility a special place. So now this quit working. Did we get, what is it, they call it a sonic boom or something that knocks all the electricity out? I don't know. But I'm going to reach up here and I'm going to hit my point up here because I don't want you to miss this point. Oh boy, it says my battery is running low. How much do I have? All right. There we go. I'm asking a question. Can you make this a special place? You know what the world is out there? You know what the world's like out there? Listen, sometimes as Christians we have problems and we get discouraged. You ever get discouraged? The world out there is a world of discouragement. You ever have fears? The world out there is a world of fears. This needs to be some kind of special place here. A place where people can come. You ever go into a place, into a home where you just felt like this is where I need to be? You ever go into a house like that? This is where I need to be. I feel comfortable here. You sometimes go into a place and whether it's the atmosphere, whether it's the family, just makes you feel like you belong. This place ought to be a place where people feel the love and comfort of God. And it really has to do with the kind of disposition that you choose to carry in your hearts. We live in a sea of error. There's error all around us in Howard County. This needs to be a place of truth in a sea of error. We live in a negative world when so many people are down. Listen, you want to get discouraged? Just spend 1 hour watching CNN in the evening. It's all about how bad things are. And there's nothing good happening anywhere. It's all bad news. It's all bad news all day long. And we live in a world of negativity. This needs to be a place of optimism where we're looking up instead of looking down. The world out there is depressing. This needs to be a place of cheerfulness. Ought to be a place where people smile a lot, okay? It's okay to smile. We live in a sad world. This should be a place of happiness. And you know what people are looking for? In spite of all the technology and being attached to their cell phone and Twitter and Facebook and all that, what people are looking for, they're looking for a place to belong. People want to belong. And this should be a place of enfolding. I mentioned to you, I think it was here, and maybe it was not. I've done so many of these in the last few months. I mentioned to you I was preaching in a place in East Texas, and a lady came forward at the end of services. She was a member of the congregation. But she said, my heart has just been troubled for a long time. I feel distant from everything and from everybody. I feel like God is far away. I feel like I don't have any close connection here in the church. She came forward, preacher says a few words and says a prayer for her, and then, okay, our next service is tonight at 6 o'clock, he says, and let's have our closing prayer. And you know what happened? Everybody got up and went home. She's standing up there. I went up and talked to the lady. Here's someone that's hurting. That says, I feel like I don't belong. I feel like God is far away from me. What she needed was people to gather around her and hug her and love her and let her know this is a place of enfolding. I mentioned to you in one of our lessons that a week ago last Tuesday, I baptized a lady named Whitney Wolf. She's about 30 years old, and she came out of error into the truth. And that was on Tuesday. The next night, she and her husband was already a Christian, but he was not a member of our congregation. They placed membership on Wednesday night with us. And a half an hour after services are over, Whitney and Jared Wolf are still standing up in the front, and there's still a line of people wanting to talk to them. Our congregation is a place of enfolding. We embrace people. New people are welcome. New people, whether they're red or yellow or black or white, they're precious in the sight of God, and they're precious in our sight too. You can make your congregation a special place by doing that. We live in a world of rejection. People want to belong. They want to be enfolded. The world is in the midst of turmoil. We can make this a place of peace. We live in a dying and decaying culture. This is a place of life. We live in an unbelieving world. Let this be a place of faith. I'm just saying, folks, you can make this assembly, I'm not talking about the building, but this assembly, you can make it something special. And I will tell you, and I'm not bragging on myself, but I don't mind bragging on our people at home. People come into our assembly and they feel good about it. We had a family just moved to our area, and they visited here, there, and then they came to our place and said, we felt like home when we came in here. We felt like we were welcome when we came in here. And so they placed membership with us 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I guess it's been now. You can make your assembly a special place by loving each other, loving the people who come into your assembly, being kind and generous to them. Life can be difficult. Circumstances can be tough. Fears can overwhelm people. Hearts out there are broken by sin. That's what the world out there is all about. But let it be the world that's grumpy, sour, complaining about everything, not us. Maintain vision and hope. You know, we talked the other day, yesterday, and if you weren't here yesterday, it's all in your book. We talked yesterday about mission, vision, and strategy. One of our strategies for reaching the lost ought to be to make this a place of hope. This assembly is a place where people feel good, and they feel sheltered when they come in here, and they feel the love of God when they come in here. To some degree, this church is going to be whatever you want it to be. Here comes our last point. This church will be whatever you want it to be. I told you that little story about the little boy and the wise man. Remember about the bird in the hand? And what was it that the old gentleman said? The kid asked him, is the bird dead or alive? The old gentleman said, it is as you would have it. You get to decide. You can choose to hold out hope to the people of this community. You're still God's people. You're still a faithful church. You're still here in Howard County in Kokomo. And you still have a mission entrusted to you by God. You know that God entrusts that mission to you because God believes in the local church, and God believes that local churches are capable of doing His work. The question is, do you believe? Do you believe that you're capable of doing what we've been talking about now for these 3 days? You don't have to go to Asia. You don't have to go to Zimbabwe. Your mission field is right here. Is there anyone in here, would you hold up your hand if you are not interested in winning the lost? I need to talk to you after services. If I haven't reached you so far, I need to talk to you. So you're not going to hold up your hand. You know that. We're all interested in that. We want souls to go to heaven. God wants souls to go to heaven. Let's see what our mission is, and then let's be aggressive in taking on our mission. Maybe there are some people somewhere that don't care about winning souls. I think that's true. I think sometimes a church is really clannish, and it's our little family group, and we really don't want anyone else here because they'll mess things up. We won't be able to do things like we want to do all the time. We'd just rather have our own little group. But that's not you, is it? The Cortland Avenue Church can show this community what God can do when His people are completely given over to Him. That's really all we've talked about now for 3 days. We've looked at it in a lot of different ways, but we've been talking about what happens if we'll give ourselves completely over to God. You can make this your mission field. So what will you do? Just want to encourage you. Let's do these things. We're not just about surviving, we're about thriving in the 21st century. We are destined for success if we'll take on the work that God's given us. Maybe there's someone here this afternoon that says, I need to become a Christian. I'm like that lady Whitney that you talked about. She needed to be baptized. That's what I need. Well, you've got your opportunity right now to obey God. And we invite you to come now as we stand and as we sing. Come now, please.
Hark 'tis the shepherd's voice I